Welcome to the Alain Elkann interviews, an unprecedented window into the minds of some of the most well-known and respected figures of the last 25 years.
We are here with David McDermott, who is a very well-known artist. We are in Dublin, in Ireland, where he lives since how many years have you been living in Ireland?
I've been here for more than 35 years.
And before that, he lived in New York. He was born in California. He was born in Hollywood, but he's neither an actor nor a director. You are an artist.
I'm an oil painter because the word artist has been destroyed in the last 50 years. It's become just a worthless title, but I'm an oil painter.
But you went to university?
I did. I went to Syracuse University and I majored in advertising and minored in oil painting.
And then you went to New York, right?
Yes, because my mentor said to me, you have to move to New York because you can be the greatest eccentric in Syracuse and no one will hear of you in Utica. And that made sense to me.
Why did you say that you were eccentric? Were you eccentric?
Well, I've always been a time experimenter since I was 12 years old, and I knew I was a time experimenter. That's the most important thing to me. And with all the money they spend on space, and they spend nothing on time, it's all about space and time. That's what's important.
But when you say,
I don't believe in space anyway.
When you say time, you met at the beginning in New York another artist, no? And you lived in an apartment in New York. And at that time, you were friends with the most extraordinary artists and people of the time, no?
Oh, that's true. But, I've always been devoted to time experimentation. But my experiments took place in Manhattan. I don't want to brag about all my great experiments. But yes, I did.
What were your experiments about? You are dressed in a way that is very old-fashioned, right?
Well, the idea is that all time should exist at the same time. That this old-fashioned concept of moving forward in time and abandoning the past, abandoning civilization to move forward. It's just very outdated concept.
But is it true that you lived in New York without electric
That's
light?
True. And this one millionaire would have his chauffeur drive his limousine to our house, and he would ring the bell, and then my partner would go downstairs, and on the automobile telephone, he would talk to my friend because we didn't have a telephone. Now, I've always tried to experiment. I love the past.
You also dressed like in the past, no?
Well, of course, but anybody can do that. That's just, the basic. But when beyond your clothes, you have a room, you have a house, you have an estate, it enlarges. And these multi-billionaires, they could create whole towns and villages that would be completely trapped in out-of-date time periods. Some of my favorite time periods, I love 26 to 35. That's a wonderful time period.
Why?
Well, because it's just before the collapse.
This was during the crash, no? The financial crash.
Well, the crash comes officially in October 29, but it takes a while for it to have power, and it helped to keep the 20s mummified. I love the past. New York, when I first moved there, basically was a 1920s city because there hadn't been any money invested in it.
But who were the artists you were sharing your life with?
There were a lot of them. There was Donald Batchelor, he just died. And there was Philip Taft, and there was Peter Shute, and there was Julian Schnabel. I never was that friendly with Francesco Clemente.
But you were a friend of Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Well, a friend is someone you can borrow money from and you can live at their house with. But I knew Jean-Michel. I have stories, and of course I knew Andy Warhol. I have incredible stories to tell you about Andy Warhol. I could have gone to lunch every day with Andy Warhol because there was a woman who was in charge of advertising, Paige Powell, and she wanted me to come every day because It was so boring for Andy to have to entertain these Japanese corporations. It was very boring for him.
That you were interested in him as an artist, you liked his work?
Well, I consider Andy Warhol one of the important artists of the 20th century. I think there's Picasso, and then Pollock, and then Warhol. And then I think that Julian Schnabel is actually very important. Do you know why I think he's so important? I think he is that those are the important artists of the 20th century. I think he's important because he found a way to revive painting after 10 years of conceptual art.
Mm-hmm.
And it was brilliant the way he did it because he broke the dishes and glued them in the wooden panels and then painted his abstract expressionism. Well, you know, when I went to school, that's what they were teaching.
But what kind of artist you are?
Well, I've been devoted as for an artist. I mean, because I'm not that good.
You're not a good artist?
I trick the public into thinking it's better than what it is. But that's always been the way with artists.
Maybe you're modest, no? Because you did many things.
Well, Julian was able to revive painting. And Bruno Bischenberger didn't buy any paintings
of yours
in the 1970s because of the conceptual art. He wasn't interested. But as soon as Julian broke the dishes and glued them and then painted the 1950s abstract expressionism on top of the dishes, painting was revived. And that's why they went to Italy and they brought Clemente, Cucchi, and Chia. But that was because they needed painters immediately, and there weren't any. That's why they brought...
But there are big painters. You know, there was Lucian Freud, there was Paula Rego, there was...
But that was earlier. I mean, Lucian Freud and Bacon. Do you know what I call that work? I call it bed-sit art. A bed-sit is a room where you have a cooker and the toilet is in the corner behind a door. They're called bed-sits. And these English and Irish aristocrats, they wanted to have that life after the war. And they would take these bed-sits. And that's what Bacon was. He was a bed-sit artist.
But you live in Dublin since 35 years, in Ireland.
When I first moved here, I had one of those bed-sits.
This is the city of Bacon, right, where he was born. But you consider him a great artist?
Well, I don't. It's a kind of art. It's very popular. Lucian Freud, he was another one of them. And they painted in these bed-sits in the messy style.
Who are the artists that you find interesting? You like old masters?
Yes. My favorite work are the Pre-Raphaelites. I love them. I don't really like the Impressionists and Vincent van Gogh, but there are enough people that like them, so they don't need me to like them also. I do like the Pre-Raphaelites. I think they're exceptional. The Pre-Raphaelites.
You mean Dante, Gabriele Rossetti?
Yes, I like that. And that work was very inexpensive to buy when I was young. It was unpopular.
And did you buy some?
No.
Did you buy any art yourself?
I'll tell you, there's a saying. There was this old Jewish man, and he said, remember when coffee was only a nickel? And the other old Jewish man said, I'd rather pay $1 for a cup of coffee and have the $1 and pay a nickel for it and not have the nickel. So don't feel badly about what you didn't buy. Do you know what I mean?
But what is your art about? Or what it has?
Right now, my paintings are a rebellion against modern art. And modern art has been going on for about 100 years now. And they're very satisfied with themselves. It's going to collapse now. But the art that was in control before the modern art was the aesthetic movement, which starts in 1850 and it lasts till 1930. The art decorative was the last of the aesthetic movement. The aesthetic movement is a combination of abstraction and the decorative styles from around the world. And in the 20th century, they were pulling out the decorations from archaeology. And that's where the art decorative comes, Babylonian, Assyrian designs. And the modernists hated the aesthetic. hated it, wanted to destroy it. And it was an art that was invented for the common man, so the ordinary man could have art.
But what is your art? What do you do?
Well, I've been
Painting?
making aesthetic movement paintings of mountains.
Mountains.
Yes, I've been painting all the famous mountains. Mount Fuji, Mount Vesuvio, the Matterhorn, the Dolomites.
But why mountains?
Because people like them. They love the mountains. And when they look at a mountain, they're empowered.
And also volcanoes you like?
Now I'm painting the important man-made monuments. And right now I'm working on the Taj Mahal. And nobody in the 20th century has painted the Taj Mahal. I was just told there's an iconic photograph of King Charles's first wife. What's her name?
Diane.
Yes.
Diane.
And she's sitting in front of the Taj Mahal. And that's the only reference to the Taj Mahal. You know, it's something Andy Warhol, he would like the Taj Mahal. Andy asked me once what he should paint. And I told him, you should just paint a horse. You should paint food. You should just try to do your best, because people would really like to see what a good painter you are.
Was he a good painter?
Yes, he was, but he was very clever.
And you are a good painter? You draw well? I mean,
I try to do my best. But one time I saw this painting in Amsterdam in a museum, and it was of a ship at sea. And all the rigging was done with pencil. As a child, I would have thought, you can't make an oil painting and put pencil on it. You know, do all the detailing in pencil. And that showed me that art is about trickery.
were you a friend of the poet René Ricard?
Yes, I knew René very well. I met him very early on and have amazing stories about René.
Because he discovered people, no? He was,
Let's see, which ones did he discover? I think it was Basquiat, wasn't it? But Basquiat was really made by Glenn O'Brien. He was the first editor of Interview, but he made a movie called Downtown 81. In the movie, Jean-Michel comes to New York and he meets all the famous people in one day. That's what the movie is about. Once that movie was the process, I mean, Jean-Michel became famous with that.
Was he a great artist? He died very young.
Yes, and the fact that he died so young, and Keith Haring, they die. Once you die, that's another story.
It makes you famous. It's like Rimbaud, right? The poet.
Well, I knew an artist who was a transition painter between abstract expressionism and pop. And he actually was on the cover of Art Forum so many times. That it was 1958, 59, 60, 61, right there. And he was convinced that when he died, he would then become famous.
Then he didn't?
He didn't become famous.
But he died.
He did die. His name was Edward Avedisian. He was celebrated because everyone was buying abstract expressionism, and then pop came, and he made the transition.
But you say that you don't like modern art, but you said that you like Pollock.
I certainly recognized Pollock.
You met him?
No, I never did. But I knew his girlfriend who was in the car, Ruth Kligman, that was her name.
And you think he's a great artist?
In the history of art, I mean, he's definitely very important. But he knew that Rockefeller was backing him, with the CIA or the FBI. And he was an out. That's why I think
they say that they have back also Rauschenberg.
I didn't know that, but I have a friend who was an assistant to Rauschenberg.
Why did you move to Ireland?
I was very seriously attacked by the American tax authorities, and they destroyed me. And I thought I had to move to a place where I didn't have to be afraid of the tax collectors.
Why? Because you don't pay taxes?
It was very difficult, and I tried to pay them, but then the art market collapsed. But I had Julian's accountants, and they figured it all out, but then the art market crashed.
Why did you move to Dublin?
Because there wasn't any taxes on artists.
And were you happy in Ireland?
In the Constitution, it said any way an artist spends his money is of value to the Irish people. Any way an artist spends his money is of value to the Irish people. So if an artist takes his money and buys some sports car and is driving all over, that's a benefit to the Irish people. I love that idea.
But you lived in Dublin all the time, or?
Well, I tried to move outside of Dublin. I tried to move outside. And I did have a great estate. Anyway, I was very involved with my partner and I absolutely trusted him. And I felt that I was working on the real art, and that's the time experimentation. I mean, when you think of the money they spend on those rockets, and those rockets, they're just pollution. That's all that is.
They also kill people.
What, the rockets? Well, the thing about it is that every time they explode a rocket, the amount of pollution is just...
What do you think about these wars going on?
Okay, come on. That's not fair to bring that into it. I'm not going to talk about that.
You don't talk about that?
No, it's too complicated, all this history. You know, I'm well read on it, but I'm not interviewing on that subject because that's a trap. Because if you say the wrong thing, then you're destroyed. You know why the British were so important to India? They never mentioned this. But until the British came to India and took one of their traditions and said, you're not doing it anymore. They said, that's it. And then the British moved to stop the tradition. They wouldn't let them do it. And this is an old tradition for thousands of years. And they never talk about it. The British stopped them from burning the wives on the funerals. It was the British that weren't having anything to do with that. And they stopped it. Now let's have the feminists champion the British for stopping them. And some of these men would have many wives and they'd all get burned on the pyre for thousands of years. And you're not going to say that that was a great thing for women? I mean, they stopped that. I mean, I don't know if it still goes on in India. I mean, I think there are people that think that's still important to do.
What about you? You traveled a lot in your life? I mean...
Well, I didn't fly in airplanes 30 years. So I feel...
Why? Because you are afraid of flying?
No, it was a part of the art experiment to have the very big world. For example, it takes 30 hours to get from Dublin to Milan overland. And it takes 2 days to get to Morocco from Dublin. So I could get on the ferry and I saw, and 2 days later, there I am.
And you like that?
Yeah. Well, it was a part of the experiment. So
you like the slow pace?
I mean, I traveled across the Atlantic 20 times.
By plane?
No, by ship.
By ship.
And I was even in hurricanes going in the winter on container ships. I was on the Queen Elizabeth when it was nearly capsized. And I saw the water coming down.
You were afraid?
No, I wasn't afraid. I went into a glacial cave. I think that was the most dangerous thing I ever did. You know, to go into the glacial cave because you have the glacier in Switzerland.
You like Switzerland, right?
I like it because it's protected. You know, it's as if it's a castle and they keep everything bound. I mean, you'd never feel that you would have your suitcase stolen.
But where do you work? You have a study? You have a place where you do your painting?
Well, I was moving around this last year, but I painted every day in St. Moritz in the gallery to finish my paintings.
Well,
because they're very complicated or elaborate. There's a lot of work. I had to work 7 days a week.
In St. Moritz?
Everywhere. In order to paint, I had to work 7 days a week. I'm just doing my watercolor right now.
And your watercolors, you do them in a small scale?
Yes, this watercolor is only this big, but I'm going to do a painting. I'm going to paint St. Basil's Cathedral.
St.
Basil's Cathedral in Moscow, you know, with the turrets.
Si.
Amazing. And nobody paints it. I'm going to paint the Sphinx.
Where? Where are you going to work?
Over on the continent someplace.
Because you're going to move out of Ireland?
On Friday, I'm going. I've only been here for a month. But I was in Sicily with Lola.
And you move forever? You want to establish
yourself?
There
was this one castle that I was shown in Spain. Because I'm all about house, not location. So I want to find. Anyway, this castle has 25 bedrooms. And they're all furnished from 1900.
You want to stay in a castle?
Well, you know the old saying, if you've seen all the rooms, it's not worth living in. Have you ever heard that?
Yes, but you like...
That's from The Leopard.
You like to live in big homes, right?
Oh, yes. because I love the idea of walking through the rooms. Well, artists have always been about rooms, spaces.
But this is very expensive.
No, it's not at all. It's so inexpensive because the rich people, they want to live in compounds and they don't want to live in little villages and in the old mansions. No, there are mansions all over France, Italy, Spain. And the rich people, they don't want to live in them.
Yeah, but they are very expensive to heat in the winter.
Yeah, I don't believe in heat.
You don't put heat?
No, I don't believe that. Little fires. When it's cold, I believe, you live in one room in the mansion. I also don't believe in restoring the houses.
You like it like as is?
Yes. Even the roof, I've just put tar paper wherever there's a leak. Look at my hand. I mean, I'm in decay. I love decay anyway.
And you're still out of time?
Am I still working on my time experiment?
Yes.
But very little my project. For example, I just bought this crocodile suitcase, but I'm not going to use it until I have the cloth cover made that it slides into to protect it when you move about. And I have an example of a suitcase that has its original cover. And see, those covers, they used to put the seals on them, when they travel.
Is this kind of life, your way of living, part of your art?
Well, I do believe that individuals, whether they call themselves artists, that's the only thing you really have is your life. And you have to make your life extraordinary. I mean, it's the one thing you have control of, and then you might get control over a shelf in the corner of a room. The idea is to be very grand. But when you think about those billionaires, what they could do, you just think, how many billions would it cost to buy Venice?
Would you like to buy Venice?
Yeah, well, if you owned Venice, you could really turn it into an amazing time experiment. When I visited Venice, I only took gondolas. That was one of the rules. And it cost a lot of money, but it was nothing compared to what it is now. Now, I love the past.
But in the same time, you follow the present or no?
Since I've been painting.
You read the papers, you watch television.
I have been listening to news broadcasts, the BBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian. I listen to these podcasts while I'm painting. And I've never been so interested in the present as I have been lately. And I think that's because I'm old. And when you get old, I think most people that their lives.
You're not that old.
No, I am.
You're in your early 70s.
Yes, but that's old. The teens and the 20s, that's the great period.
You think you were more creative at the time?
Well, I was very creative. I have great knowledge. I started doing these watercolors, and I hadn't worked with watercolors for 60 years.
60 years?
60 years. I worked with them when I was 12, 13, 15. That's all I worked in was watercolors.
And then you stopped?
Well, I started working in oil, but I did very good watercolors when I was little.
And you still have them? They're gone?
I know where a very good one is. It's with my half-sister's daughter. But I'm very interested in my life now.
Which is different.
Oh, from the one I escaped from?
Yes.
That's true.
Which life you escaped from?
The one where I was brought up in the suburbs of New Jersey. And I had to get out of there.
When?
In the 1950s and the 1960s. I was raised in New Jersey.
But you were born in California.
But I was only there for 3 weeks.
Oh.
And my father was from Croatia.
That's why you were a friend of Warhol, because you have a similar upbringing.
Do you think that?
I don't know.
I don't know, but I never tried to push my friendship with Andy. I just knew it was inevitable, that we had so many things in common. And when he died, do you know what I said? What a gyp.
What does it mean?
It means, I just lost my good luck. I've been cheated out of. That's what it means.
So you were raised in
Gypped means you're cheating.
So what do you say? You were raised in a middle-class family?
Well, they would have
Jersey.
they would have called it that, but it was actually upper working class.
What was your father doing?
Well, my mother left him. I don't even know if they were married.
You lived with your mother?
But they had to have a search for him when they changed my name to McDermott.
What was your name?
The original name?
Mm.
Kasic. It's a common name in Croatian.
Was it a Jewish name?
Well, my grandmother said he was Jewish. And I said, well, how did you know? And she said he had the map of Jerusalem all over his face.
You were half Jewish.
Well, he was supposedly in a concentration camp. That's what my grandmother told me. And I said to my mother, did he have a tattoo on his arm? She wouldn't tell me.
Your mother was from what origin?
Old American Southern. That would be French, English, Scottish, and Irish background in the Old South.
And you were the only child?
My great-great-great-grandfather was Chief Justice of the Confederate Supreme Court, and his name was Dylan Jordan.
And you are the only child?
I was the only boy born in 100 years.
Were you very spoiled?
Well, I was an only child till I was 10, and then my stepfather had a daughter, and then everything changed because I was another man's son in the house with his daughter. And then he accused me of molestation when I was 13. And that was so untrue. And I've spent the rest of my life proving that was impossible. And to this day, I'm hardly on speaking terms with my half-sister over that because I tried to tell her when she was about 17 about the accusation, and she wouldn't listen. She didn't believe it.
And you are friends?
No, I'm not friends. And my mother just died at 97, and my half-sister had taken care of her. So I thanked her. But she's selling the house, and I don't want anything. She can have it all.
So are you going to have new exhibitions somewhere? Or?
Well, I'm going to work on my new collection, which is going to have Big Ben, Eiffel Tower. I'm going to do 4 paintings that will be the Great Wall of China.
And where are you going to exhibit?
What's interesting, well, wait till you hear. This is really good. I'm going to show with Bruno Bischofberger's first child, Layla Bischofberger. She just opened a gallery in Zurich. And so I'm going to show with her. That's amazing because she is kind of like Bruno and a woman. And I was talking to her and she told me she had just rented a gallery, but she didn't know what she was going to do. I said, well, you have to show my prints.
But this will be watercolors, prints, oils?
The watercolor is just a sketch.
Yeah, but
for my painting.
This painting
They're going to be oil paint.
You have worked for many years with another artist, Peter McGrath. So there is part of your work that is made together, right? So what is the difference between the work you did with someone else and the work you do today?
Peter is working in the genre of the LGBT movement. And he's been very much involved with Black Lives Matter. And he is creating all this work that is transgender. That's the kind of work that would only be noticed in New York City.
But you didn't do it together?
No. This is the work he's doing right now.
Now, what did you do together and what kind of work was it?
It was about promoting the past. I was using the art to promote 1912, 1901, 1888. I was using art similar to advertisements to get people interested in the past, bringing the past into the present. I very much believe that.
And what did you do? I mean, photographs or?
Well, there were photographs. Photographs made it so we had to have the past because to photograph it, you actually had to have it. Whereas with painting, we could just get pictures out of books.
Now you're in another life.
I thought that with this art career, I was going to be able to make a truly great time experiment. I mean, I was using all of my wherewithal to create this experiment. And I really had it when I was betrayed by my partner because I had this estate and everything was there. Every drawer you would open, it would have objects of the past. And I'm very knowledgeable of the past. I hope when I'm introduced to King Charles that we really get along. And he adores me.
Are you going to be introduced to King Charles?
Well, that's what the woman I met today, she said she was going to introduce me to Prince William and Princess Kate, and they were going to buy my Taj Mahal painting. That's what she told me. And the art dealer said she always says what she means. She's not someone who just talks. Then she said that she was going to introduce me to King Charles.
This seems to excite you a lot.
I belong in the hands of the very powerful people. I wouldn't spend that money sending rockets off to Mars. I read about colonizing Mars in a Japanese science book that promoted the idea of conquering the universe. This is ridiculous. They just found a planet. It's 2,500 light years away, and it has gas around it. And they're saying this is the first planet that they found that they think there's life. 2,500 light years of it. They can't even keep the oceans clean, and they want to go to Mars. And they're going to drop nuclear bombs on the North to make water. I read all about it, but it said it might only last 100 years. And so it's absurd.
Are you
It's just absurd.
worried about it?
No, I'm not worried because I'm old. And when you get old, it just becomes a show. And you're just watching this show go on. From the way you've talked, you're very much involved with the contemporary world.
No, I'm just trying to understand you.
Well, I think London should be this big. And it's this big. But I think London should just be there. And it just should be a little... in Prince Charles's book, he talks about this city in Africa. And when he was born, in maybe 1948, there were 30,000 people living in the city. And he said now there's 5 million people there. The only way the contemporary people think is to expand, to make it larger, to make it bigger.
And you'd want to make it smaller.
Yeah, I think it should be. I like the idea of...
But there are many more people in the world.
Unfortunately. And that's a real issue, because I think that the only reason the people have for existing is to have children, especially women. If they don't have a child, their life is just irrelevant. So they're all moving constantly to have these babies. It's really kind of sad when you think...
to have babies?
Yeah, it's their only reason. And the men playing the soccer and the football, that's just unbelievable that they're going to watch this ball bounce around. And think about all the balls that bounced around, in the 1950s and 60s. And they don't care anything about those balls, and they're all focused on this ball. My grandmother said they should be watching the government, not a ball bounce back and forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Alain Elkann interviews.